Hi, my name is Sun. I am the founder of Night Owls, which is a digital agency in New York that focuses on personal brands. And I'm also founder of Night Owl Nation, which is the community where I met Sabreen. Um, and it's a community where we get together with a bunch of entrepreneurs and creators get together and we practice storytelling together.
Mhm.
So it's not, I don't think it's like, that's why I don't think it's by design.
No, it's
You
not
know what
by
I mean?
design.
Yeah,
It's what people follow without
yeah,
thinking,
yeah,
basically. And it's hard for thinkers like you, right? Because you analyze everything. It's
yeah.
hard for thinkers, I kid you not, because I'm not analytical, right? Like you, I don't have your mind, but I think of the why when I don't like doing the thing or when it doesn't make sense in my head, which what got me in trouble, got you in trouble as well, right?
Hmm.
Um, we just,
So you do have an analytical mind, I think.
you think so? I don't see it.
Yeah.
I see that I see my
Because it's the
emotions get
reason
in
why
the
you
way.
were it's the reason why it got you in trouble because you would question things, right? So
Okay.
which I think is important. I feel like
Do you think it's
we're losing a lot of that. I can even see the difference between when I was younger and now.
yeah.
If I just look at the people around, like people now are a lot less critical thinkers than people were like 20 years ago, for example.
Yeah. I agree.
Probably because of social media or
Social media
you
and the
know.
way of life. Like when you think
Mhm.
of, was it you who posted about Da Vinci having so many things done,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And interest, and that helped him in blah blah blah, right? So right now,
Mhm.
it's not impossible to do all of that, but doing it is harder, right? To have multiple things to do because you have lesser time to do because again of the 9 to 5 of the way things are happening. So it's
Yeah.
so we don't have the same
Also,
critical
there's no
thinking.
need for it
That too,
because like
unless you're
y-
passionate about it.
everybody like that. I think that's the one thing that they had back in those days before assembly lines, where if you're a cobbler, you know how to make a shoe from scratch all the way to a form of a shoe. Now there's not a single human on earth. Maybe there are a few, but there's nobody who knows how to make a shoe from beginning to end, right?
Yeah.
We all just know how to do our part,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no person who can assemble a computer, create a programming language, and translate it to ones and zeros that a
Mm.
processor can process, and write a code that's going to build a website and then aesthetically put the design on it. Like, not one person can. There's not no one single human being that knows how to make this iPhone from scratch. Meaning, go extract the wax, create the plastic, go mine all the metals,
No,
design a semiconductor, and like from beginning to end. You know what I mean?
it's not
But we
just
all know
that.
how to. Yeah.
There's not one person. If you went to any office or any governmental place, there's not one person who will do the same thing, the whole thing process. You have to go
Yeah.
to multiple places.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the problem is that
Yeah.
we're so detached from the thing that we're making.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? So like
Yes.
back then I can make a shoe and I can look at it and be like, wow, I did a good job and have some sense of pride in that work. That just doesn't have okay. I enter 10,000 entries into database. Ooh, like you
We
know what
don't
I
do
mean?
that anymore.
We
Um,
don't see the outcome of that. Yeah.
you just made me think of you making your own agency. You
Mhm.
became that person who made everything from scratch and looking at it now.
Yeah, and I wish like the number one thing that I'm trying to do with Night Owl Nation
Mm,
is to help people to critically think about things. I just feel like that's the skill that really the world needs, and I
yeah.
feel like I can teach that skill. And the way you
You
can
can.
teach that skill is by people just meeting in small groups and having a conversation about something, some topic, right? And so, which is what I'm trying to facilitate.
Was it? The last night I won the night Sunday service, was it? Or
Hmm.
the one before? Because I couldn't attend the last one. When you were talking about the night owl nation. I don't know what you were talking about. How did you come up? What you were saying is how to, oh, you were saying that the exercises, those are the new ones that we just
Hmm.
started, which was a great exercise, by the way. um, and you need our feedback, obviously, to make Night Owl Nation better. And you have a vision for it, for the curriculum and everything else, and what is the actual core and blah, blah, all of that. In
Hmm.
my head, I thought Sun at some point, he either realized or will realize that the gold in Night Owl Nation is the community. Even though now, how you made this community is by creating these exercises for us to
Hmm.
talk to each other and then for us to read each other's stories, right? It's like, you know, let's tie it
I
to
mean, I
you
guess
being
in a sense,
rebellious.
yes,
Let's tie it to you
but
being rebellious. Give me a
it's.
second. You know how there's a rebellion and there's a leader
Hmm.
who like lead these people and tell
Hmm.
give them a vision,
Hmm.
and that's you have this rebellion seed inside of you. So this
Hmm.
is all coming together, Night Owl Nation. um so you brought these people together, you're giving them these
Yeah,
like
well,
this
you're exactly
knowledge,
right.
right? You're teaching them and you're like there, and everyone is just following what you're doing, and through following that, we're creating this community.
Yeah,
Does that make
well, I
sense?
guess you're right in the sense that community is important because nobody will do anything just because they critically think and they believe it needs to be done. They're only going to do it if other people are doing it too.
Mm,
That's it's this is kind of how I feel. This is why what you're saying is correct in the sense that community is important, but at
mm.
the same time I don't care about community. They're both correct.
Okay.
And the reason why they're both correct is because I it made sense to me when you talked about the rebellion, right?
Mm.
So if you look at if you know Hunger Games
Yes.
with Katniss Everdeen,
Yes.
so if you watch that whole series, Katniss Everdeen never gave a fuck about rebelling, about throwing off the capital. She does that wasn't her goal. She
No.
didn't care about that at all,
Yeah.
right? She didn't want to lead people into revolting against the. That
Yeah.
wasn't her goal at all. It's just what people created. The community created that, right?
Mm. And
Her
made her a
goal
role
was
model.
just to, yeah, her goal was to just to care for the people she care about. That was
Yeah.
her only goal,
Mm.
and that's almost kind of how I feel at Night Owl Nation. Is that my goal is to create some amazing community where everybody loves each other like that. That's not my goal. My goal is to teach people how to think critically, right? How to think for themselves rather than just accepting
Mm.
conventional truth.
Yeah.
Like actually think for yourself, right? But in doing so, I think what's happening is
It's the
a
byproduct.
community is being created and people are making their own assumptions about like what, and if that's what it's going to take, fine,
Mm.
good. Like if that's what it's going to take for them to learn critical thinking, good. I'm all for it. It's kind of
Yeah.
like why I never gave a shit about yoga itself,
Mm.
right? The only
Mm.
reason why I kept going to yoga is because I love the Baptiste community. I love the people there.
Mm.
But if that's what it's going to take more for me to get healthy and do yoga, so be it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I see what you mean.
yeah.
I see what you mean because I remember um you made me think of chemistry equations
Hmm.
where a whole equation happened, and
Hmm.
there is like the products are not the most important thing but the byproduct. Like we get the products, but the thing that shine is the byproducts. Does that make sense? If you are into chemistry. I feel like this is an analogy
Yeah,
not
no,
everyone is going to
yeah.
understand. Okay, no problem. So It's usually the things that happen, like when people invented anything. You know how it happened? It always happens by accident. Someone
Hmm.
has
Yeah, yeah,
an
yeah, yeah,
idea, a theory in their mind. While they're doing it, they realize, oh, what is this thing happening?
yeah.
You know, something's
It's kind of
happening
like
here too.
how they, I think how they figure out how to measure gold or something like that.
It's
Because somebody was taking a
do you
bet.
not DNA,
Uh,
genetics,
uh,
Mendel box.
uh,
A lot of not invention, but breakthrough theories happen
mhm,
because the person who was doing it, the scientist, was like, it would tell you if you studied bio and
mhm,
chemistry, is this is their theory, this is what they were looking for, this is what they
mhm,
got. Like,
yeah,
we understood genetics, right?
mhm,
Because Mendel was doing something else. This is
mhm,
what I remember, right? And then we understood what happens with phenotypes, blah, 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 blah.
mhm.
So, this is usually what happens, is that we are focusing on something and something else comes out of it. And both are good, right? I know you don't like, I don't think you necessarily not caring about the community, you do. I think you
Mhm.
convince yourself that you're a boat somehow, but we don't see that in you. You just told yourself that you're like that. I'm not I'm not
I mean, I get,
stealing
I
your
don't. It's
narrative
not
away
that I
from.
don't see the
Okay.
importance of the community or anything like that. It's not because
I'm
the
not saying
same
no
thing happened at.
importance, caring. I know you know your critical mind tells
Okay,
you.
so like, yeah, yes, I care about the community. I care about the people in the community, but it's not because I'm like, oh, I need to build this community and I need to, in order to
No.
make this community stronger, I need to care. That's not what's happening, right? Because
No, I
it's
know.
like, it's a
If
that's a byproduct, like you said. It's
if that's what was your goal, you wouldn't have
Mhm.
succeeded.
No, exactly, because
You wouldn't
that
have.
actually happened.
Mm,
And when I first started my agency,
mm,
like my agency, I feel like what makes it so special is the culture of there.
mm.
It's that new person come in and literally 6 months later, this person is a completely different person.
Yeah.
It's because of the kind of conversation, it's the kind of passion that we bring into everything we do. Like all of those things
Yeah.
is what creates that culture.
Okay.
But when I first started Night Owl, before I started Night Owl, I was a partner at another agency,
Mm,
and the same thing happened there. I literally didn't care about people at all. I don't want to lead you. Stay away from me.
mm,
I'm just gonna do my thing, and
mm.
I just did my thing. I made those websites. I I did my job well, and everybody that in itself attracted people to me, and they were like they wanted to sit next to me and watch how I do things and
Yeah.
all of that, right?
It's the
And then when I
background.
decided to leave that company to start Night Owl, 7 people from that company quit their job and followed me there. And
Mm.
then when I actually started Night Owl, I was like, I need to lead these people. So I was trying to motivate them, inspire like people they weren't having it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So
I
it's
do.
almost like, yeah, I had to,
Mm,
I if I try to build a community,
mm.
it's actually not going to work because I see that everywhere. People are
Yeah.
trying to build community. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're so full of
Mediocre.
shit. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's just in life you just do what you, with projects, I mean, you do you
mhm.
focus on the, and things will just align together. Because I told you I went
Because
into,
it's going to
yeah,
attract other people who wants the same thing
you'll track your
automatically, and the
people,
community
right?
will get, yeah.
Yes, and I think I think this is a relatable story to many people, where they are put into uncomfortable situation and they're like, okay, you see the person who decided to challenge the situation failing, but the person who
Yeah,
accept the situation and do their job, they would overcome, not
yeah,
overcome it, but
exactly.
eventually they will figure out what's happening and everything will align together. And I
Yeah.
think this is what's happening with Night Owl Nation. I remember when I joined, I don't, did I tell you? I
When
this
did you join?
I joined like probably 3 months ago, um,
Okay,
or in June, I think, because my
okay.
second build
Yeah,
was
that's three
July.
months ago.
That's 3 months. Yeah, I'm so bad at math. Okay, I can't even count back for. It was because you. I was following you, and really loved your style in Instagram. That I love black and white. Absolutely
mhm,
anything black and white. I love blacks more than white. So anything
mhm,
black, it just attracts
mhm,
me, right? So
mhm,
I was like, and I was when I started my Instagram, I wanted to be a writer and share my poems and all that stuff and connect with people. But then I realized that I don't like sharing everything I write. Yeah, I'm not.
mhm,
We talked about this in your podcast.
mhm,
You said something, and I was stressed about how everything looks because all writers or blah blah, they have these awesome looking Instagrams page, and I'm like, I'm not into that.
mhm,
I'm not, you know. So you said something about posting colored reel, and you thought that is going to ruin
mhm,
the authentic looking of your page,
mhm.
and no one actually cared, no one
Yeah.
noticed, blah blah, blah. I was like, ah, that's correct. And then this is how I followed you. And
Mm,
then something else about killing your darlings made me join the newsletter, right? Because I wasn't seeing your posts all the time, right? It was every now and then because I have many subscribers. And then I joined, and then you sent me this newsletter about it's $5 only. Even Netflix is
mhm.
more expensive, and I was like, he's right. Even though it's $5 in Canadian is like
Uh-huh.
$7. I was like, whatever,
Mhm.
So I was like, I'm gonna join this month. If this guy doesn't show up to the meetings, I'll cancel. And I made sure that I can cancel. Actually, it's not something where I have
Mm,
to call people and blah blah blah. And
mm,
I it took me so long because I went in and I was gonna pay, and I was like, what if this is a scam? Left, then come back,
mhm.
and then I was like, if he doesn't come to the meetings, I'll just cancel. But I actually at that time there was hot seats. Sorry, no, it
Mhm,
was the micro storytelling 101
mm. I
last
did it every Tuesday. Yeah.
every Tuesday or last quarter.
Uh,
So you were there, and we were only four people.
mm,
Edwin was one of the people. Him and I
okay.
joined at the same
Yeah.
time. We were with Luis at the group, big groups, and you were there with four people, and I'm like, okay, if he showed up for four people, looks like this is good, right? And then eventually, things worked out, and I love Night
Mhm,
Owl Nation a lot. Made so many friends, and and I started this. So my experience, I could talk forever. I'm sure you had a lot of feedback from me already. I don't want to go into tangent into that. But it's the fact that you are there. It's what matters, and you are there with. You're not there pretending. You're there as yourself.
yeah, I think that's what I meant when Katniss Everdeen, like, I don't know if you remember, but like I think by part 3 or 4 of the movie,
Mm,
because there's, in the Hunger Game world, there's actual a revolution happening. So there
yeah.
was an underground of
Yes. And then she
revolutionaries,
joined the
and
revolution, right?
yeah, and they recruited her, right,
Mm,
at the end of like one of those movies. And what happened was they put a whole PR team on her,
mm,
and they had all these people with cameras.
mm.
And I don't know if you remember this, but they put her on the stage and they
Yeah.
gave her a script,
To
and she was
read.
like, "Come on, people! Like, let's fight! Let's fight the Capitol!" Blah blah blah. And then it just nobody bought into it.
Mm,
When she was actually trying to lead the revolution,
yeah.
nobody gave a shit, right?
No.
It's when she actually went out into the war and saw this child being killed and saw the emotion of her reacting to it,
Yeah.
or like in the beginning when she all she cared about was just she was willing to sacrifice herself
For
to
her
save her
sister.
sister.
Yes.
And that bravery alone, that courage alone,
Mm,
watching that alone was enough for people to be like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? That you don't have to try to force it and fake it
No. You
to
need to be who
to
you
try to
are.
lead people. Yeah,
No. No. And I think leaders don't mean to be leaders. They don't
yeah.
actually wake up saying, I'm gonna be a leader today.
No leader, no great leader actually wants to lead
No. No. No.
because they understand what a horrible job it is. It's the worst job in the world to lead a group of people. And
Scary job.
So as soon as one of the things I always say is like, who the worst bosses are? The ones who want to be a boss.
Yeah.
You know who the best bosses are? The
The
ones
one
who
who
don't want
know.
to be a boss.
Yeah, I agree. I yeah, I had so many experiences with bosses
Hmm.
and with someone asking me to step, and I'm like, I don't want to do it,
Yeah.
because there is, yeah, no leaders want to be a leader. I can relate to that.
And
I
I
want.
see a lot of this like in the whole coaching influencer world right now, where
Mm,
I see so many people who want to be an entrepreneur, who want to be like, instead of like, the best entrepreneurs are the ones that actually want to invent the product that's going to change the world. That's what makes the best entrepreneur. Not somebody who goes on Instagram and inspires people and like that's not what makes a good entrepreneur, right? Like
they're
that's
always
just a
like in their
marketer.
own
Yeah.
cocoon trying to do
Hmm.
something and so focused on the making
Hmm.
that they don't care
Yeah.
about what people are thinking about them,
Exactly.
right?
So I see a lot
And
of that. I see a lot of leadership coaches out there trying to be like, you know,
mm,
show an example of good leader, but like that's actually sign of a bad leader.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like
yes,
a good leader is the one who just do their thing and people just naturally follow them, right?
yeah. That's why.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry. No, so I want to hear
this
what's
whole
that.
social media world is so fake.
It is
It
fake.
drives
That's
me
why
crazy. Yeah.
I quit social media 2019, and I only came back with this one because it was overwhelming, especially Facebook. It's very overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that's why I see you as a good teacher. Um, and I don't know if you love teaching or if you are into teaching, but you're
Yeah.
so good at it just because you are showing the work for what it is, not what it is supposed to be. Like, remember when we talked about Hamlet, and I had this teacher who was so into the right analysis of Hamlet as it is
Hmm.
supposed to be and discussed so far. And
Hmm.
I wanted to just have talk about it from my point of view and
Hmm.
his point of view, right? Not what we
Hmm.
read, because I can Google Hamlet and read 10 analysis
Hmm.
about it, right? And 10 opinions and 10, I don't know, essays, blah, blah, blah. But
Hmm.
I don't want that. I want to read it and talk to someone about it and first feelings, and like go into discussion with a teacher, right? Because a teacher would have, blah,
So
blah,
what
blah.
do you think that teacher's goal was?
I don't think that teacher had a goal of teaching. He had a goal of delivery.
Got it.
He wanted to deliver the information as they are, right? Or was told.
So you can pass the test or something like that.
So you can pass the test, or so because you see this, it's because I met a lot of people who are like that,
Hmm.
who wants to follow the framework, right? They don't see outside of it because they think many people worked in this framework that we have to follow it. Okay, I have the framework that people worked on it. Why can't I just work outside of it? And if I'm wrong, we can go back to the framework, right?
Hmm.
But and we talked about this in education too, right? Because we follow this education system and that tell us that we have to study all these subjects. Okay, why can't we just find out? Okay, for example, there are certain skills like writing, reading, counting, etc. are important, but then you can look at what each child has and work on it, instead of forcing this child to study. Like, why did I study calculus in grade 12? I don't understand what calculus is.
That's probably also part of the whole assembly line thing,
Yes, so it's
because
all
that like
connected.
teachers are part of the assembly line too, right?
Yes, it's all
Like
connected. Yeah, it's all
and this
connected. It's all connected, and challenging it. And Ray and I were talking about challenging it and changing it. And you're doing such a great job. You're ahead of us in the game. You're there,
you know
and
what, here's what I'll say. I
okay.
don't know if I'm trying to be a good teacher, but what I am passionate about is this.
Mm,
There's nothing that makes me feel better than um, giving somebody some sort of an enlightenment. Meaning, this person didn't see something before,
Mm,
and then I through something that I did, now they see it. They're like, oh my gosh, like some sort of enlightenment.
mm,
And sometimes it's something that sometimes it is simple, right? Like
mm.
somebody might be designing like this, and I just give them a tiny little tip that's like, hey, why don't you try putting this amount of space around
Mm.
each object? And then they try it and they're like, oh my gosh, wow. Like it's but like when I see somebody have like an aha moment, that's like the most I think that's what I'm going for every time. And that's
That's
why
your
I love
slushy.
making people say, yeah. That's why I love hearing people say I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Because and I don't know if that's what teaching is or not. I don't know about that, but it's what I'm passionate about. And right now I feel like at Night Owl Nation, there's still a lot of people who don't really get storytelling. And then there are a
mm.
lot of people who doesn't fully get the myth truth universal truth thing. And that's
Okay.
what drives me every day. We still got a lot of work to do because somehow once these people like that's why this week's assignment was so exciting for me because I read all those myth truth sandwiches on Circle and I'm like, okay, they're not getting it. But I just know that once they get it,
Mm.
like it's gonna be a most amazing thing. They're gonna be like, oh my gosh, how could
Yeah,
I have not known this my entire life? Kind of
yeah,
thing. You know what I mean?
yeah. I do. Um, I don't think you're trying to be a good teacher. I think you're just a good teacher who doesn't know they are.
I'll
For
take
real.
that.
Yeah, I'm the student, so my review counts. So, yeah, you don't, I don't think, I think what you said about loving seeing people um, having an aha moment and realizing things, I think this is what is teaching, right?
Yeah,
This is the core of teaching that teachers nowadays are missing and thinking about.
yeah.
You have to excel in
They
grades. You
just
have
want you to
to,
memorize.
yeah,
Like,
you have to have the knowledge, like I remember Prof saying, so why I had a no, I I complain about not knowing all the nerves in a
mhm,
test because, well, I'm not gonna explain why, but like I was just confused, right? And at that time I was like almost fourth year, it was the end of third year, and she said, I was talking to another prof. So she said,
mhm,
why by now you don't know this? Right. And this made me so ashamed of the fact that I'm in neuroscience. And I went back and I had all this dilemma of the fact that I don't know nothing about the brain. And I sat down and I was like, do I even know the lobes? Do I even know
mhm.
this? That means I forgot everything. I'm not good at neuroscience. Right. And it just gave me all this. But the fact that after you leave undergrad, it's not the knowledge you get, is the skill of research of how to get the information. It's the
Yeah.
skill you get
Why,
out of
why
the
do you
brain.
need to know that?
No,
If
because
you can look it up whenever you want, why do
yes,
you need? Do you understand what I mean? It's kind
unless
of like
unless
saying
you're performing a
you
surgery, but no, you don't need to know that as an undergrad, fresh out of college, right?
like it's kind of like this, right? I was in one of the small group leader meetings, and I said something about like how a programming language only has 500 words, but the English dictionary has 20,000 words or something like that.
Mm,
But the actual number turned out to be 200,000 words,
mm,
not 20,000. So I was off by a zero, right?
yeah.
And then somebody actually like Googled it and
Mm,
pointed out like, son, you're actually wrong. It's 200. Like, okay, why does it matter whether it's
listen,
the whole point is that English language is much more complex than the programming language. That
yeah,
was the point I was trying to make. Does it really matter that it's 20,000 words, $200,000 words, or 2 million words?
no.
The point is that it's a lot more complex than this, right? So if I could get the point across, and
Yeah,
that's the reason why I like for me, memorizing those statistics is so not important for me.
no.
Like it's actually more important. I don't care if you don't memorize exactly how many words are in the English dictionary. I don't give a shit about that. What I
Mm,
would actually want you to understand is how simple programming language is
Mm.
compared to an actual language that you speak. That's all I care about. And as long as you can have an
Make
aha
that
moment about
connection.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what's important. That means you've learned, not that you memorize that there's 200,000 words in the dictionary. Like, who cares? You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
And having a teacher who knows that is important because it won't limit the student,
Yeah.
right?
It's the more important things. It's
It's
like I don't understand math teachers who doesn't allow. I guess now everybody does, but it's like, do I really need to memorize what 3,762 times 273 is? No, a calculator can do that for me. That doesn't make me
yes.
smart just because I can do that math in my
Yeah.
head, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the difference between like yeah, I guess like we need to talk about like I feel like with AI that this discussion topic will come up more often where
Yes.
what does it mean to be intelligent? What does it mean to be smart?
Mm.
Right? If you
Yeah.
can do math problems quick in your head, does that mean you're smart? You know what
That
I mean?
means you have a
Like what
talent.
is it?
It doesn't mean you're
Yeah.
smart.
If you have photographic memory, does that mean you're smart?
Mm.
Right? Like so
Mm.
I think I think
Smart is
this
what you
question will
do,
come up a lot.
but with what you have. I don't think it's knowing. That's knowledge, right? Because I seriously could not remember names for
Hmm.
real. I think it has. I
Hmm.
don't know what am I challenged with, but
Hmm.
for me to remember someone's name, I have to know them for a while, and for me to remember places names and even like big people that everyone know their name and just remember like that, it's hard for me to do that. And someone says it's because you're not knowledgeable, you need to know that, and I'm like, I just know I am knowledgeable.
Hmm.
You can't change that aspect of me in my head because I know it. I just know that I'm challenged in that, right? So having the knowledge about something is different than applying it. And I think the smart part is applying and using that knowledge. Because if you could have you could, like right now, you have the knowledge of storytelling. You could have just sat down with it,
Hmm.
with your agency, made money, right? But you're doing Night Owl Nation.
I think what's going to happen. This is my prediction. I think
Mm,
smart is going to become one of those words where smart is not catch-all phrase.
mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's like saying, "Oh, what does it mean when you're good?" Well, it depends. When if you say you're good in swimming, that's different than you're good in math. Those are two completely different things, right?
Yeah,
So I think smart is going to become like that too, where you know being smart as a musician is different than being smart as a mathematician, which is different than being smart as a filmmaker. And
yeah.
I just think that it's such a subjective thing
Mm.
that because like you can argue that Mozart was a genius, and you can argue that Da Vinci was also a genius, but Da Vinci didn't know how to play compose a symphony, and Mozart didn't know how to do paint.
Yeah,
So like it's just I just feel like smart is such a subjective thing that you can't define smart by saying, oh, with an IQ test or something like that. Like, I just don't
yeah. The
think you
IQ test is stupid.
can.
The IQ test is. I
You
never done one, so I don't know.
it's like it's like some sort of a standard for something, but it misses out so many other components of
Details. Yeah,
what's necessary. Yeah.
it's like a whole picture, while the details are
Hmm.
much more important, right?
Hmm.
I'm looking at your film and I'm like thinking what else I could ask you because like we went in so many tangents that we could just talk forever about
Yeah.
it, right? What do you think a theme in your life is? Do I need to restate the film in my mind? So you tell me the theme or you have an idea?
Like a reoccurring theme.
Like, yeah, a reoccurring theme, or like if the plot in your life, I feel
Yeah, I
like
guess like I would always come down to something about, I don't know.
I feel like
I don't know.
from coming from Korea, right?
Uh-huh.
And the whole thing I painted earlier, I don't know if you like, but coming to Korea and then going back to you, to your teenage, and then meeting the youth, meeting Gigi, and then coming back to you, getting bullied, all these like scenes back and forth, right? And then eventually we would have longer scenes of you in childhood, um, with just being a child playing, right? Or in your youth, when you're
Yeah, maybe
studying
that's
something,
it.
right?
You know, like when I was a child,
Mm.
I was infinitely curious, and I'm even am now, but I never had this desire to be like, um,
Liked.
no, no, like I the need to be right,
Mm.
or the need to know, or something like that. The need for me to have all the
Figure
right
it.
answers right now. Like I didn't care. Like every new, I was like a sponge, just every new information, just absorbing, absorbing, absorbing. And at some point, I feel like I lost that.
Mm.
Maybe starting my business or something like that. And I
Mm.
feel like meeting Gigi and kind of Gigi being in my life.
Grounded you.
Now I'm kind of going back to that place where I don't need to, like Night Owl Nation. Like
Mm.
I don't need everything to be structured, and I need to be everybody to be learning this.
Mm.
I'm okay. I'm completely okay with, oh, it's interesting that this community is being formed, and the
Mm.
community is actually helping people learn, and that's interesting. Let's see where this goes. That kind of curiosity of, okay, well, let's see where this goes, and not having to be in control of it. I feel like I went from like a free, curious, free, accept accept kind of person into this kind of control freak
Mm.
where I need to be in control of everything. And then now I feel like I'm trying to go back to that my child self of like,
Do
I
you
don't need to
think?
know everything. I don't need to be right about everything. Something
Do you
like that.
think the control thing? What you said it happened. Do you think being in control happened when you left the house, or when you started Night Owl Nation?
I think when I started Night Owl Nation is definitely when,
Mm.
not Night Owl Nation, but my agency. When
Sorry,
I
Night
started,
Owl, the agency, yeah.
yeah,
And
when I started working for myself, yeah.
and when you said you had some narcissistic symptoms or like characteristics, did they start also
Oh,
in
I've
the
always
age?
had that.
You've always
No,
had that. No, because
I mean, I think,
okay, go ahead.
you know what, actually, I think it, I think what happened was I've always had it,
Inside.
but it was like very, very deeply hidden. It wasn't there. But
Mm.
then when I like started my agency, I think it really came out.
Mm.
So I think what even that being in control thing
Mm.
was
It was there.
somewhere deep in me. The ego, the narcissism, all of that was deep inside.
Mm.
But I just feel like I never had a reason to let it out at all.
Mm.
Do you understand what I mean? Because I was just living life, going to 9 to 5 job, going on like twice
Mm.
a week, twice a year vacation, doing the basic things, right? And
Yeah.
I was just living along. And then when I started my agency, I felt like all of that just came out and it just went to the extreme.
Mm.
And then kind of like DJ's bringing me back down to earth. And now I'm trying to like my only wish is like I wish I can go back to how I was in when I was a child. Like when I was a child, I've I've never even like I never had one day where I felt like I wasn't fully present.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I
And
do.
I just need to go back to that state. Yeah.
I think you needed Night Owl, the agency, to know yourself,
Hmm.
to know the hidden things inside of you, because they had to come out at some point. And then you needed Gigi to ground that,
Hmm.
to show it to you what they're doing to
Yeah.
you and to the people around you, right?
I actually think that everybody should go through an experience like that,
Yes.
whether it's starting a business or doing something like
Mm.
doing something for themselves, whether it's traveling or, writing a book or whatever it is. I just feel like in those places,
Mm.
I just think that everybody needs to go through something where they let the worst part of themselves come out.
Yes.
Because I think only then you can really truly learn about yourself.
And accept it. Because if you did not accept that you had these characteristics, you weren't gonna move out of them.
Yeah,
If you if you
you're gonna keep ignoring it. Yeah,
Yes, because
yeah,
you will be in denial. Narcissist
yeah,
who? Not me. I'm the
yeah,
great
yeah, yeah,
person who made the
exactly.
agency, blah blah blah, right?
Hmm.
So you had to like accept it to move on from it, right?
Hmm.
um I think a theme here is figuring out yourself throughout, even since you're a child. Maybe you don't feel the childhood now and figuring out yourself, but the fact that you moved from a place to place is huge. And I don't know, because I'm not in your head. I don't know if you remember every changes and everything, but
Hmm.
the more because you're away from it, you're still away from that, right? I'm
Yeah.
not assuming, right? So
You know what I think the theme is?
mhm,
I think it's exactly what you just said. Is maybe everybody needs to have that one period in their life where because like let's say you start dating someone, right,
yeah,
and that person is like perfect and it's all nice, and then you go on a vacation together, and then like you see the real, like you see their true self come out, right? Like
yeah,
the worst, and like I think that's when somebody's true nature comes out, is when
hmm,
in those worst situations, right?
yeah,
And that's why we at Night Owl at my agency we do these uh annual summer camp trips,
yeah,
because when you're in the camp, there's no shower. You're roughing it. Somebody
mm,
might get hurt, and those sometimes it's raining, and you got to sleep in the tent.
yeah,
In those worst situations, when you put people to the test, that's when their true self really comes out, and you can't hide from that. And I just feel like everybody needs to go through a period in their life where you literally go through some sort of a struggle where you let your true self out,
mm,
and then you face it, right? And then you face it to a point. Like for me, throughout those years, what happened was no matter how much I deny it, I just kept getting stomped over it. Like the universe kept crushing me,
the
crushing me. It's
pattern,
like, oh yeah, son, you think you're not a narcissist? Boom.
yeah,
Oh yeah, son, you think you're right? You think you're in control? Boom. Like I kept getting crushed, 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 crushed over and over until a point where I had to like literally give up and be like, okay, I accept it.
mm. It's
This is not
something you
working.
said before. It's the pattern.
Hmm.
Until you see the pattern in your life,
Hmm.
it's not going to stop. It's going to keep happening,
Yeah.
right? Until you see it, accept it,
Yeah.
and you will know how to deal with it when you
Yeah.
accept it. Because I've
And
had
and, and
both
I just,
experience.
you know what?
Yeah.
I feel like so many people in the world live in that pattern
Yes.
over and over. And that's why people say, like, I think, I don't know if you heard this phrase, like, doing the same thing over and over and just expecting a different outcome is like the definition of insanity.
Mm.
And even though everyone says that,
Just do it.
most people still do it. And that's
Yeah.
why they, they get into a bad job,
Mm.
and they keep going after bad job after bad job after. They go into a red flag client, or
Mm.
red flag relationship after red flag relationship.
Yeah.
They buy a course, it doesn't work, and they buy a course again, it doesn't work again. They buy a course again,
Mm.
and what ends up happening, or every new year they're like, this new year I'm
You
gonna
me.
change, and they don't change.
Yeah.
But then every time that happens, what do they always say? They say, no, this time it's different. No, this guy is different. No,
Mm-hmm.
this boss is different. We
Mm-hmm.
always think that this time it's different. And that's our brain saying, hey, this time is not like at all those other times, even though it's exactly like it, right?
Yeah.
So I just feel like we're stuck in that world.
Yes.
Most people are just stuck in that world.
The matrix.
Yeah,
Our own matrix.
yeah,
Because I experience it in a different way than yours. And I know because of my religion and faith, I know that everyone will experience this at some point, and only few people are, I'll say, like not few, 50 or so, would understand it and get out of it, right? And the others will just keep repeating it. And
Hmm.
I admire
Maybe
Gigi.
you really need to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, I admire Gigi because she stayed
Yeah,
and
me too.
killed you with the kindness.
Yeah.
Cause I know myself. I see the pattern in people,
Hmm.
and it's not always, because here's the thing: only the person who's going through the pattern is going to break that pattern, right?
Yeah.
Even if you
And
told,
nothing that anyone else says will change that
will change
person's
that.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So she is staying with the pattern and being kind enough towards you is legendary for me. So much respect and the
Yeah.
love she gave and everything. That's why
You know, sometimes I used to, not anymore, but I used to go into this mood where I'm like just complaining about everything. I'm like, I can't believe this client did this, and that's because of this, and then that, and now we have this designer who's doing this, blah, 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 and
yeah.
I'll just complain about everything around me, right? Even though it wasn't really the reality.
Mm,
Like I would overthink and overanalyze and over complain about every. Like I saw this video actually reminded me of how I used to be. Like there was a TikTok video of this woman like, oh, I was trying to make this characters, but I know that then I got to do the dishes. But when I saw the dishes, and like I knew that I need to put this away, and then in the bedroom, then I need to clean this. Then that
yeah.
reminds me of that I had to return these shoes, and that reminds me of the, and that she was making up all these problems in her life,
Mm,
which really aren't that big of a problem.
no.
But she created this huge world in her brain that she has like the worst life in the world or something like that, right?
Mm,
And then her husband comes and be like, okay, why don't you go, why don't you go lie down? I'll make the carriages for you, and then
mm,
blah blah blah. And then this person, another person was reacting to it, saying that like, you see what he did? Like he's like, there's no way for her to win because like he's just dismissing her problems like it wasn't a real problem, blah 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 blah. And I was thinking like, okay, I was thinking how the woman who was reacting to it, if she was my wife,
mm,
I would have never fixed myself.
mm,
It's the reason why I was able to fix myself was when I was going through one of those delusional moments where like, oh, everything is falling apart, everything is wrong with the world. Gigi would, instead of Gigi dismissing it and or even like actually like trying to like feed into it by agreeing with me. What she did was she was like, "Oh, what can I do? What can I
mm,
like? Do you want me to do this? This? Okay, how about I do this for you? How about I do this for you?" And
mm,
just her doing that made me realize, holy shit, like I'm overreacting here.
mm,
And if she did anything else other than that, if she was like, "Son, don't overreact. Don't. It's not that. It's not that serious." If she did that, I would
mm,
have fought even harder, right?
mm,
Or if she says like, "Oh my God, son, you're right," blah blah blah, then
mm,
I would have like I would have fed into it, and I would. But the fact that she just like calmly said, "Okay, let me help you with this, 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 this,"
mm.
like how supportive she was,
She was there for you.
is the thing that made me see me for
Mm,
who I really was.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. I agree. I think it was the time, it reminded me of the beans story. It was the time in your life when you realized that you have someone that is
Hmm.
staying,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And
Exactly.
she kept proving it over and over and over. It's not just the story, that story you told us, but it just she kept proving it over and over. And when she proved it, you're like, damn it, I need to fix myself,
Yeah.
right? Because I experienced this. Not experience, it's always in my brain when I'm about to do something that I know it's wrong. It's so tempting to do. I think how it's going to affect the people who supported me, right? Like for me, someone gave me a kidney to live.
Hmm.
So and so I can't eat sushi right now after the
Hmm.
transplant.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
And I love
yeah,
sushi. I love sushi.
yeah.
So when I think, what if I tried one time and nothing happened? I didn't get food poisoning. What it stops me is the memory of everyone supporting me through the dialysis and everything, and the fact that someone said Sabreen deserves my kidney, and I'm gonna go through all the hustle. Like, it was a lot of work for her to give me the kidney. It was 2 years of work, of like paperwork and going back and forth, right? So same thing with you. See, it's a different experience, but it's totally connected because the outcomes are
Hmm. Hmm.
connected. The feelings are there of someone, you have someone in your life who got you.
Hmm.
So you
And
are
it's that
forced.
it's different when it comes from, because somebody can do that, right?
Mm,
Somebody can tell you not to eat sushi or whatever it is, and, like after giving you their kidney,
mm.
but out of judgment,
Yeah.
right? Like they're judging you for it, and they're
Hmm.
like, then you're gonna get the, well, yeah, well, I'm gonna eat sushi to prove you wrong, right? Like, but
Yeah.
the fact that she was doing it purely without any judgment,
Yeah.
right, is
I
what did it for
I
me.
was
Yeah.
telling Anna because I had like 4 hours podcast that is going to be cut
Hmm.
into episodes about the, because it's a long journey, right? Is that one of the things when someone do you something is the pressure of you don't want to ask them. I didn't want to pick up the phone and be like, did you do your appointments? Did you do this? Did you
Yeah.
do that? Right? But she did it all by herself. Like, I remember one time she called me, I was at work. She messaged me saying, hey, I'm in Toronto. She didn't live in Toronto, by the way. And the surgery was in Toronto, and every appointment was in Toronto. She had to take a
Mm.
train 5 hours to come here. So she messaged me saying, I am in Toronto for a doctor visit. Can we meet for dinner after your work? I was like, you didn't tell me you're coming, right? I was so surprised. And the fact that she took that pressure out of me that day, like I could have been thinking about her coming and all the money she spent on tickets and all of that was, I had it in me, right? But she took that away from me. And that's what Gigi did,
Hmm.
right?
And that's so
She,
hard to do, right?
it is.
Because
It's not easy.
you truly have to come from a selfless place with zero ego, and
And
you
not
know,
wanting anything in return
yeah.
and loving the person unconditionally. You have to have that. Like, the love has
I
to be
feel like
there.
if we can somehow all try to go for that,
Mm.
like that'll completely change the world, right? Like,
It will.
when I posted the thing where I said, um, every job I had, I worked my ass off,
Mm.
and like people will always tell me, like, son, don't work so hard. They're not going to pay you more. What's
Hmm.
in it for you? All of that, right? Like they're just going to give you more work.
Yeah.
And and then I said, yeah, but always went over and beyond and
Mm.
did the best I can, and my bosses always ended up giving me a raise,
Mm.
or it always helped me get more opportunities in the future, blah blah blah. And
Mm.
when I said that, some people replied in the comments, be like, "That's exactly how people are going to exploit you. Like this is a terrible advice because you're telling people to work their ass off, and that's how they're going to get exploited, blah blah blah." Right? But that's the thing, right? It's kind of like Anna doing, like, going out of her way and doing that, and you might come from that terrible place where you said, yeah, if you do that, everybody's going to take advantage of you,
Mm.
right? Or you can come from the place that, okay, like, oh, if you're really coming from that selfless
Mm.
place, then that'll come back to you in karma, right? You can
Yeah.
look at it either way, really, and both can be true.
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge difference between putting in the work, working hard, putting in the work, or putting in the content, or teaching something, or giving something to somebody with an expectation that I'm gonna get this in return from them,
Mm.
versus giving just for the sake of, because you enjoy giving,
Yeah.
right? And
And
when you actually just give without that expectation, things start coming back to you anyway, usually. But you can't think about that expectation,
no, it
and
has
that's
to
kind of
be
what Anna did.
genuine. And that's what Gigi did, and that's what my
Yeah,
friend did. And that's somehow what you're doing with Night Owl Nation teaching. I know you're thinking, I'm getting the aha moment, and it's so good.
yeah.
I'm
For
going to,
me,
yeah, you think that, but there is selflessness into it because of the
Yeah.
amount of
No, I
work
know
you're
what you mean.
doing. You know what you
I
mean,
think
right?
you can. I think being selfless can be selfish too, because
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you ever heard me say this story, but when I was 19,
Mm,
um, I had all this leftover food from dinner
yeah.
because we order a lot of food and we had all this leftover,
Mm,
and we were going to a club, so I didn't want to just throw it away. So
mm,
what I ended up doing is there was a homeless woman sleeping in the bench,
mm,
and I just put the food like next to her head, and I didn't want to wake her up, right?
mm.
But then she woke up and she was like, "What do you do?" Like, I thought she was gonna yell at me for giving her leftover food,
Yeah.
and I've never gave any homeless. I've never gave food to a homeless person before. This was
Yeah.
the first time I ever did it. But then she actually woke up and she opened it and she just started eating it right in front of me, like
Uh,
right there. And she was like, "Thank you so much. I haven't eaten all day."
mm,
And like that, like literally made me cry. And it wasn't like I was doing that so that I can get like, but just the act of that alone just
mm.
made me feel so good, right?
Yes. 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 And
So
and that's okay,
yeah,
right?
and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do is that yeah, I'm doing it because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It's
And
not because I'm some selfless like I'm not Jesus. Like I'm not doing it because I'm Gandhi. Like I'm
yeah.
truly doing it for selfish reasons. But
I'm not gonna talk about Jesus, but who knows? Gandhi wasn't hasn't has his
yeah,
reasons.
that's
We'll
true
never
too,
know.
right? Like
We'll
he
never
has
know.
some
Yeah, we'll never know.
scandals too. So
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, you know what I mean by
Yeah, I
like,
do. I do.
like
I
I'm
do.
not some holy, selfless person.
Mm.
It's not. But I wish everybody would know that how good it feels to be selfless. So do it for that reason because it feels good.
It does.
you know.
It does. I have so many stories, but I want to ask you, what would you name your movie?
Maybe something to do with like facing the worst part of you or something like that. Like facing, like like in psychology they call it your shadow, right?
Mm.
Or something like that.
Your shadow?
Because
Shadow.
I feel like that is the
Mm.
like after having this conversation today, I actually feel like that is like a huge part of my life is that it is the time when the worst part of me all came out.
Mm.
That's been hiding all that shadow that I've been suppressing, hiding, and
Yeah.
deep inside me.
Yeah.
When I started my own business, all of that came out to the surface, and I
Yeah.
had to face all of those things. And through facing those things, I
You
feel like
encounter
I'm learning to
yourself.
become
Yeah.
like my true self and
Yeah.
be a better person, right?
Yeah. No, I do. I
So
think
I
you
just feel like
do it.
it's so important for us to face our shadows, face all that dark side of ourselves.
Face who we are. Like,
Mhm.
um, was it last week assignment? I don't remember which assignment it was, in which we talked about what was the name of
Like putting
assignment
yourself in
in
somebody
someone's
else's
shoes,
shoes.
and then I shared the judgment story, if you
Oh
remember,
yeah,
right? Um, it is that time when you get this aha moment and you're like, it's me, I am the problem. You know that
yeah,
thing on Instagram. Whenever I see it, I laugh
yeah.
because everyone has this part in their life whether they choose to say it's me, I am the problem, and this is what I am, right, or ignore that, right? They have this choice,
Mhm.
and I think this is what is happening with you, right? Because you detached from that your true
Yeah.
self at some point in your life, which you're saying is the agency point, right?
If you met me
Yeah.
when I was 29 or 30 or something like that, you probably wouldn't even recognize me. I
Mm.
mean, not because of like how I look, but just the kind of person that I was.
You were arrogant.
Yeah, because I was the exact opposite. I was completely unaware of myself. I
Mm.
didn't know anything about like you know what I mean?
I do.
Like I didn't think of it like I didn't. put myself in anyone else's shoes.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So like, I
Is
just
it
feel like
maybe putting yourself in your shoes? Because not your shoes. It's more
like
like it's
if a
like
29
go ahead. The 29.
if 29-year-old son had joined Night Owl Nation now
Yeah.
and tried to do this exercise, I would have been like, "Fuck you! Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't like I would ignore everything that I'm teaching right now.
Yeah.
Like like the
Yes.
29-year-old son was not ready for this.
Mm.
You know
Was
what I
not
mean?
ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know what you mean because when I started Night Owl Nation and you gave us one of the exercises, I don't remember where I started, but I did not want to follow it. I thought this is stupid.
but
Okay, the question was
yeah.
here we go again. The question was, is your movie name? And you said something about facing your
Facing
truth,
my child is what you said.
facing your shadow. Let me write this down.
I know
Facing.
that's not really like a you know an exciting title, but
I feel like there's more here. I just can't put my brain into it. It's not you didn't just face it because you can face it and ignore it. You faced it and you made a conscious decision and you changed. And now you're going back to yourself. I think not the better name, but since you're outcome driven,
Mhm.
it's the going back to yourself. Because the
But I think
purpose
that's
here.
universal to everyone, though, don't you think? Like, I
Mm,
feel like everybody is their true self when they're young. Like, if you go, like, especially with girls, I'm
mm,
so shocked when I see my nieces and
mm,
like people that I know when they're like 5 years old. They're literally the most amazing human beings. They're
they
like
are.
so outgoing, so funny, so silly, and it's just like you're so amazing, right? And then
Mm,
they turn 12, 14, 16, and I start to see them kind of like subdue themselves a little bit.
mm.
Like they
They're told to
they're
like.
becoming more like every other girl. And then
Mm,
by the time they're in their 20s, like boom, like they're like a literally carbon copy of the typical 25-year-old woman out there, right?
who doesn't like flowers?
But
Yeah.
then when I see them, I'm like, you're a total different person now than you
Mm,
are when I knew you when you were 5 or 6. When
mm,
you were 5 or 6, you were so amazing. You were wild. You were silly. You were
mm,
funny, and all of that. And what's even funnier is that those same girls,
mm,
when you see them behind the scenes with
mm,
their childhood friends, with their
mm.
best friends, they still let that side of them out.
Yeah.
It's just that they never do outside of that environment. They're like the proper,
Yes.
the proper professional, ladylike, you know, something
Yes.
like that.
I
And it's
do.
so sad to watch because I feel like the other version is the much better version. Do you understand what I
It
mean?
is. I do. I do because I was shamed at some point for being my true self, and then I had to like put it down with certain people, right?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Um, that story was like, I was raised by my grandmother, and her food was so good that when she put the food, we finish it. It was
Mhm,
just how it is, and she didn't even need to tell us to finish the food. We just
mhm.
finished our plates, right? And also we were told as kids, I don't know if this is true, that if you don't finish your food, it will come after you on Judgment Day. Because it's just you're wasting food, and that's one of the like horrible sins, right?
Mhm.
So it's so engraved in my brain that I have to finish what I still struggle with this, what's in front of me. So I always order, like
Just enough. Yeah.
enough for me, and I know I'm going to eat this. Like, for example, I don't order a lot of rice because I'm not a rice eater. I wasn't raised to eat rice, right? So I would order potatoes instead of it. Even if the meal has the rice and everyone wants the rice, it'll be a bigger meal, right? So I always finish my plate.
What if you go
And
to like all you can eat?
all you,
Is that a
oh,
struggle for you?
it's not struggle because I love food. I when I say that, you always see you're thinking about girls who don't eat. I'm a girl who eat. I go to all you
That's
can
what you
eat
mean.
with purpose. I go there on purpose because I'm going to eat, right? So I remember being with one of those friends and the proper no girls, and I don't think of myself as a proper girl. So we were eating. It was just her and I. So I was in
Mm-hmm.
my comfortable element, and I actually never thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we got food. We were hungry, and we got food, and I got the food, and I finished my meal. I finished it. Nothing is wrong with it. So she's like, "You must be hungry to finish all of that."
Mm-hmm.
And she always, and then I was like, "I am hungry, and why would I leave food that I paid for?"
Mm-hmm.
And I ordered what I want to eat, so I ate it all. And this was like common sense for me, right? But when she said that, and she said it with such a like downgrading, it was the comment itself was judgmental, so you can feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I sat down, I think about it, I reflected on the whole thing. Then I noticed that she never finishes the food because girls don't eat a lot. I don't know
Yeah.
what's her logic beside behind
Yeah,
it,
no, that's what I mean. Like I feel
you
like,
know? Yeah. And we
and it's
just,
not just girls. Obviously, the guys do that too.
oh yeah,
Like there's like
definitely.
a version of us that we show.
Masculine, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't cry and
But I think it almost even gets to a point where it's not even like private versus public. I feel like we ourselves change ourselves as we get older. That we
because we
almost
think that's
forget
the
what it
version.
was like we were
Yeah.
like when you were young. But I feel like
Hmm.
when we were young, that is the true version
Self.
of the real authentic, the most authentic version of ourselves, where
Yeah.
we literally don't care what people think of. Like a 5 year old at a playground is not
Mm.
sitting there thinking like, I hope people don't look at me like I'm a loser. Like that's not what they're thinking. You know what I mean? They're
No.
literally saying what they want to say, they're doing what they want to do.
Hmm.
And we lose that part of
We do.
us as we get older. So in some sense, we all are trying to go back to
Mm.
our true self, which is like the child version of ourselves, don't you think?
I do. I totally see it in everyone. Not everyone realizes that they have to go back, but the ones who do, they
Yeah,
do
we need to
go.
unlearn all that and go
You
back to
need
our.
to unlearn. Um, I'm thinking of a name. How about the the journey to your authentic self? But that's, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what everybody needs to do. I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe the journey to your authentic self, the way I had to go through it.
Mm.
Because if I didn't go through that moment
Mm.
of me
Or
facing all
facing,
my shadows, yeah,
but it
I
would be
don't know if I
facing
could
all
ever
my
like,
shadows.
yeah, like I don't know if I could be where I am today
Mm.
if I didn't let the worst part of me out in my 30s.
What was the worst thing that you had to accept and face?
I think the worst thing was like the highlight for me, the real turning point for me is I said the story before, but when one of my employees quit
Mm.
and he says that I realize you're never gonna let me make decision. That's when I was like, that's so true. It's when I accepted that like I always have to be right,
Mm.
right? And sometimes I'm right, and sometimes it might be right,
Mm.
but yeah, it's like how
You
much I always have
realized
to be right.
you realized you became the version of your old boss that you didn't want to become,
Hmm.
right? Because you
Yeah,
said your boss was like that too.
yeah.
And then you realized you
I
became
had to
that
become,
version.
yeah.
But you had to become that to get back to who you are,
Mhm.
don't you think?
Maybe, yeah, maybe what that moment did for me was I always saw myself as one thing,
Mm,
and then I think from that point on, what it really taught me, and that was
mhm,
like already like 10 years ago, maybe more.
mm,
I think since that moment, what taught me was to see me as I really am, rather
mm.
than seeing me from my biased version of what I think I am. Do you know what I mean? Like in my mind back
I
then, I was like, "Oh, I'm
you were
smart. I know everything.
seeing.
I'm right. All these people are stupid." Like, but now I'm just like,
I
"No,
think it's something you said before. Self-awareness is not just knowing yourself, is also knowing how people are seeing you,
yeah,
right? And what you were at that point, something Frank would say today in our small meeting, is that we have this fairy tale about ourselves, the world, who's supposed to be in our story,
yeah,
and we're always seeking the cast,
hmm,
and we're always manufacturing this
hmm,
fairy tale, right?
hmm,
And we all know
yeah."
fairy
And I
tales are
think that's what
fictional.
I did. I
Yeah,
never. That's
yeah,
why I love that exercise that we do, where we
yeah,
look at the hero, villain, and the victim,
yeah.
because I feel like at that time I always saw myself as only the hero, and no matter
Mm,
what situation, I'm always right, and I'm being right is the hero. When very very easily somebody could have been looking at me like the villain,
yeah.
right? But in my mind, I'm like I'm the hero, right? So
That saying that I'm the villain in someone's story, and I'm
yeah.
okay with it. Uh, honestly, I always thought I was the villain. I liked it.
So
Never thought
maybe
I'm the
that's
hero.
maybe that's the thing story that you need to change. Like maybe you like
Probably.
sometimes you are the hero, but you don't even see yourself as that.
Yes, yes, true. That's
You
one
know?
of the things that I need to understand about myself. Franco
Hmm.
told me that today too. That I love. I love Franco. Franco is my small group
Oh,
leader.
she's your smoker leader. Yeah.
Yeah, he's my small group leader. We had a meeting today. That's why, like, everything he said. I showed you a folder that it says Franco quotes in the Sunday service. He's so good. You have no idea. You have no idea. Like, he makes me cry sometimes. He makes me cry every other meeting. That's how good he is. And I'm not a crier. You can tell me anything.
What
You
does he
can show.
say that makes you cry?
He like sees me for who I am, and it's not something a lot of people, I've never experienced a lot, not even friends, right? I'll be with a friend for 10 years and they will still have this image of me. I'm
Mm,
either presenting that image to them or they have this bag, because see, I don't have a friend who I stayed with my whole life in one place. I always come back and forth. So all my friends have this image of me, right? But with Franco, I feel like because we kind of have like some similar moments in life that's closer to each other, and also he's a psychologist. I believe he studies psychology, right? So he sees me for who I am. That's why sometimes I'll be saying something or blah blah, and I'm telling the story, and I know I'm not sharing my stories on circles
mhm,
uh or on social media, because all the stories I wrote were personal, and
mhm,
all of them I asked the group not to share. So because I'm sharing these personal stories, he gets it.
mhm,
He gets the plot behind the plot and sees what I'm actually getting at,
mhm.
right? So every time he says one thing, I'm just like, oh my god, and I get so emotional, which is something I learning about myself, that I'm actually an emotional person. Something I've never thought I am. I've
Oh,
always
really?
thought that I'm like, yeah, I never allow myself to cry. I'm always act and feel 10 years later. I'm not in touch with my feelings. And this is one of my problems, right? So yeah, that's what's happening with Franco. He's a great person and great leader. So, and we went on tangents on Franco now. So what is your takeaway from your film? Like, so far in this talk. Did I make
Yeah,
you
I think
think of some?
it's what we just said
Mm,
is the biggest takeaway from our entire conversation today for me, which I'm probably going to start talking about now that we've had this.
Great. Great.
Is that I actually want to encourage everybody, if they haven't gone through it already, is to go through some sort of a struggle. Because I think when you're going through that struggle, and for a sustained period of time, not just for a day, but for months, if not years. Because I think when you're going through that much struggle for that long period of time, what's going to happen is it's going to bring the worst out of you. And you almost have to let that worst out of you and let it all out into the surface and let everybody see it and criticize you. And like literally, I literally had to get, like, yes, Gigi was very supportive of me and she always stuck with me to the side. But throughout that whole time, I had a lot of enemies too.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people that told me, like, that pretty much like put me in my place for who I really was, right? And when person after people after people after people are saying the same thing over and over, at some point you're gonna be like, maybe I am an asshole.
Yeah.
Maybe I am a narcissist. Maybe I am this. Maybe, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's I think there's a value in truly going through some sort of a situation like that where you literally let the most selfish, the worst part of you out.
Yes.
And show it to the world.
Yeah, I agree. We have a saying in Sudan or in the Middle East, I don't know. What you just said about criticism is if two people tell you that your head is not over your shoulder, touch it. Touch it. Because two people told you that they don't see your head over your shoulder, even though you're seeing them and talking to them, which is crazy.
That's kind of like what I was saying about the self-awareness too.
Yes.
Like
touch it, because something might be wrong, right? With your takeaway, something like, I don't know if you'll agree with me, is some people go through the struggle and deny it. What we said about the pattern. Because I truly believe that people by their 30s or mid-30s to 40s already went through something and they decided not to acknowledge it, or they're unaware of the lesson. Like sort of me being told I am sick, but it took me 7 years to get to the lesson. And then after the 7 years, even during my dialysis, I was still resisting, right? Until I came to the point where I was like, okay, even though I was accepting that I was sick, but I was resisting other things, right?
I don't know, because I feel like I'm a pretty stubborn person. So I just, if it can happen to me, I think it can happen to anyone. I literally, because that's how stubborn I am. And that's how stuck up I was. You know what I mean?
I do. I just think that people do go through struggles. If not one, a couple. It's the pattern.
No, I think most people actually don't go through.
No?
I think at least
where do you live?
In the Western society. I don't know about like other society, but at least like in the Western society, people I know, most people have never really went through that much hardship.
Okay. I'm not going to argue that because I didn't live my whole life here. It's only been 11 years. And those 11 years I was hustling. So I was with the hustlers, with the newcomers, the new... I was with the people.
And maybe if they don't, then maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it just means that they're more aware of it, right? And that's why maybe the reason why I went through so much struggle is because I was so unaware of it.
Yes.
That I was so unaware of that. I was so stuck in my own head.
Yeah.
That I wasn't willing to see it. That it really had to get that bad for me to see it.
Yes, I agree. Maybe they saw the pattern earlier in their life and broke it. Who knows what people are going through?
But I do think that if your life is too easy, That's not good.
Is this true? Is this truth or myth now, son?
I don't know.
Because I feel like this is
I
what
mean, I don't know if
everyone.
anybody's life is really that easy, so I don't know.
Yeah, is this the truth or the myth? We'll never know. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't think I will. I don't tend to. I'm curious about people's lives, but for me to ask the question, blah blah, I just have to reach a level with that person. I wish I can do it with everyone. I can
Mhm.
only cold DM call or ask for people to come to the podcast and tell me, right? But I learned not to compare the struggles, because in my brain, everyone's, and I think it also relates to genetics and where you're brought up. The resilience everyone has or is different, so
Well,
they have
it
the,
depends on your environment. Like,
yeah.
like they say, the worst thing that happened to you
Mm.
is the worst thing that happened to you, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
and for you, that might be going through a breakup, and for somebody else, that might
Yeah.
be, living through a war, right?
Yeah.
But either way, to either of them, the worst thing happened to
To
them
them
is the
is
most
the
traumatic
worst.
thing that
Yeah.
happened to them, right?
Yeah.
So it
See,
doesn't.
like, someone like me
Uh,
does not understand why breakups are hard. I have no clue. When people cry over breakups, I am so amazed because in my head,
well, most
um,
people don't cry over breakup, unless it's like their first relationship or first few. Like, I feel like most people that are devastated over breakup are usually the younger ones.
true.
Do you know what I mean? It's because like when you're 16 years old and your boyfriend breaks up with your girlfriend breaks up with you, it feels like it's the end of the world, right? But when you're like 30 years old, you're looking back, it's not,
Yeah.
you know,
Now I've
like
seen people who are older who like go crazy. So I'm like, not crazy,
that's.
crazy. I wouldn't. I'm not judging. Honestly, I'm just like, I understand this is their struggle. It's just I cannot relate to this struggle
Mhm.
because I'm thinking of it in a logic way.
Yeah.
Like if it was good, it was a state. You should move on. There's more men out there or women out there. It's even
I
better
think
because now you have to explore.
it's probably because when it's a breakup, usually
Mm,
it's more like there's other things to it. Like one, it could be that they dumped you, right? If
true.
somebody then you also have a sense of rejection.
Mm,
Or if somebody cheated on you, then you have a sense of betrayal. And then there's also this thing like if you've been with somebody for 10 years and you're so comfortable with this person, like if you had a dog for 10 years and that dog died,
mm,
it feels a little bit weird. Something is off because now, like I used to have this furry thing running around the house and it's not there anymore,
yeah.
and something feels empty, right? So there's a little
Mm,
bit of that. So I think there's a lot of other emotions that are tied to the breakup that are.
maybe you're right. Maybe it's about me not feeling the feelings.
Yeah.
I do think it's about me, by the way, with the breakups. I'm truly like
Also, you
convinced.
moved around a lot, so
Yeah, I can move on
I think
easily.
but it's like the way you grew up, probably, because that's what I meant by when I was younger. I feel like children were taught more to be independent. Whereas,
Yes.
and I feel like children nowadays are almost being brainwashed to be more dependent. So what's
Yeah.
going to happen is when you're a more dependent person,
You get more
when you go through a
emotional.
breakup, it's going to be devastating. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're a very independent person,
Mm,
it's not going to be as bad if you're
yeah.
when you go through a breakup.
Were your breakups bad? I'll cut that so Gigi doesn't see it.
No, I think my breakups weren't that bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was pretty
Yeah.
amicable.
You being analytical. That's part of the thing.
I mean, at
Yeah.
least on my end. I
Yeah.
don't know about on their end.
You'll never know the other end. So it's we'll let it go.
Mhm.
Okay, son. I really love this. So much that I don't want to end it, but it seems selfish to not end
Me
it.
too. I loved. I think I've you know
You
I've
had
kind
some
of
breakthroughs.
yeah, I have a takeaway.
You have a
Is
ticket.
we
Great.
all need to let our shit out at some point.
Is it the takeaway? Is it I never thought of it that way? It wasn't my
Yeah,
intention.
exactly. Yeah.
It was
I
okay.
feel like that was
So,
actually a very crucial time in my life, and
okay,
maybe more
I
people
love
need
this.
to go through it.
I learned a lot about you today, which was the
Oh,
goal.
good.
Which was the goal, right? And I am so grateful that I know how busy you are and you have so much things to do to come to my.
Well, it was amazing talking to you. So
Thank you so
it
much.
actually flew by. I can't believe it's been 3 hours.
Yeah,
But
I know. I'm like feeling hungry and I'm thinking what's happening, but then I realize we've been talking for 3 hours, right? Even though I had some sugar just in case. I love this so much, and I want to talk to you more. Probably in a couple of years, or come to your podcast. Who knows? We'll
yeah,
just
I mean,
flow.
you're a Night Owl Nation, so we talk all the time. So.
We talk all the time. You know what I tell Franco when I go to first meeting? I said, Franco, stop me because I'm talkative and I can talk for the whole hour and not let anyone talk. He just laughed.
Oh, like in your group?
Yeah, in my small group. You know, when in Sunday service, when you say raise your hands, if you have anything to say, I always want to raise it. I always have something to say, but I don't raise my hand because I feel like I'm taking space. And I feel like, people need to talk other than me. But yeah, so thank you so much for being here today. And I loved everything.
Thank you for having
Amazing.
me, Sabreen. It was awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching The Lemon Narrative with Sabreen. And